Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Christy Ranzow, and I serve as the board chair for the United Way of Hancock County. It is so nice to see so many of you here today. For more than 60 years, the United Way has served its community by raising funds and granting dollars to help our organizations in this community that need it the most. Our mission is to measurably improve people's lives, and we will continue to do that by fighting for the health, education, and financial stability of all of the individuals in our community. Before we go any further, I would like to take a moment to thank all of you for being here today, specifically to our funded partners and our board members for all of their hard work and their service to our community. Second, I would like to recognize our donors and our volunteers. It's with your time, talents, and treasure that help our community the most. To our public representatives, thank you for taking your time out of your schedule to be here and to learn about our new initiatives. Also, thank you to our committee members and staff for all that they do for us behind the scenes. And if you are new to the United Way, or if you're here just because you're curious, we thank you, we welcome you, and we hope that you want to become a part of our organization. The purpose of this forum is to introduce our newest initiative, to clarify the direction of our initiative, and we're going to explain to you how we reached our decisions regarding these initiatives. And finally, we want to share with you what you can expect from us going forward. To this point, please note that we have placed cards on your table. If there are not note cards on your table, please raise your hand and we will get you some. Please use these cards to jot down any ideas or questions that you may have, because when we are done with presentations today, there will be an opportunity for you to actually speak one-on-one with some of the members of our staff and our board, and we hope to answer each and every question that you may have today. In addition, you can visit our website, liveunitedhancockcounty.org. We will have a frequently asked questions section on our website. We are also recording this today, so it will be available for distribution if you would like to share it with someone, and we will also have it on our website for you to view as many times as you would like to do so. In addition, I would like to say after I speak, I will be stepping out. It is not that I don't believe in our initiatives. I happen to be a Girl Scout leader, and I have a Girl Scout meeting at 6 o'clock that I'm leading, which, by the way, happens to be United Way Partner Agency. So I really believe in all of the initiatives, but I do have to go serve my troop this evening. So if you have any questions specifically for me, I am always available. Feel free to call, email, stop by my office. I would love to speak with any of you. So our first speaker this evening will be Tim Miley. Tim is the director of the Office of Economic Development, and he's also a United Way board member. He has been serving as our strategic planning chair, and he has also been working countless hours with our community assessments and helping us with this entire plan. So please help me in welcoming Tim.
Thanks, Christy. So as John and I were talking right before we're getting started, he said, wow, this is like 3.5 years in the making of what we're announcing here tonight and how we got there. And the reason I'm up here tonight is talk because I am the chairman of the Strategic Planning Committee for the United Way. And it really has been 3.5 years in the making. I see a lot of board members here that's worked, a lot of committee members, a lot of partner agencies. And probably the most important thing I can tell you is we have put a lot of work into this, and we think we've come to a good decision to meet the mission that Christy described. So if you go back 3.5, 4 years ago, and John, how many years ago was it when you took over? Almost 5 years ago, we started taking a look at the community. And with Director of Economic Development, we've seen a lot of changes in the community over the past several years. So we're asking the members through community assessments, community mapping, bringing all the stakeholders to the community over the past 4 years, what should we be working on? And what was interesting, the priorities remain the same almost every single time. And one of the top initiatives or priorities was financial stability, which John's going to talk more tonight, which I think you saw on the invitations when you were coming. But what came out of those themes every single time was there are a lot of things that go underneath financial stability that impact it. So it could be substance abuse, it could be housing, it could be transportation, it could be literacy, which are a lot of the coalitions that we're working on right now. So we kept hearing the same message over and over and over again, and we thought, how can we as a United Way organization start to impact some of this? And that's when we started to learn about initiative funding. So John started reaching out through his network and the Ohio United Way network. Are there other communities and United Way organizations that have gone through initiative funding? And it turns out there have been several. There's some in Arizona we looked at, some in New York that we looked at, and we tried to understand, because it's very disruptive from the model that the United Way typically has, where you raise the money. Currently, we raise money, and then we go with our partner agencies and we fund that. And we typically do that on a 12-month calendar period right now. Initiative funding is much different because you're starting to get into root cause analysis, and you're really starting to take a look at initiatives funding over a longer period of time, and funding becomes more proactive, where the United Way is partnering with the community and the partner agencies, saying this is something that we want to address and affect long-term for where we're going. So what we found from the other United Way agencies that we worked with is that, yeah, there was a learning curve, that you had to work with the partner agencies and the community because there was a change, but it was easier to communicate to the community how you were using your dollars, you were getting more people the resources, and connecting through that. So as we were going through the process, with the help, I think Gene was involved in this, and some marathon folks, we were trying to visualize what was going on as we were working through, and the theme was root cause, trying to get to the bottom of things. How can we, we do a very good job of measurably impacting people's lives, I think is the mission statement, or somewhere close to that. But we really want to, instead of measuring, for example, how many times they need to be taken to work or how many meals they have, are we really getting to the point where hopefully we don't have to measure that in the future, or maybe not as many times. So when we started to take a look at the root cause, what we noticed was, it's very difficult to see, but on these branches are a lot of the coalitions that we've been working with. And when you talk about financial stability, as I mentioned, they have a lot of barriers. Rarely do you have one person that has a problem with financial stability where they only have one issue. Chris Webb's on the board, and he gave the example of the healthcare navigator they have at Blanchard Valley Health System. When you go to the hospital, you may need to see several specialists. It's very difficult to do that. It's the same thing when you're working with all the partner agencies and everybody that we have in the community, of how do you work through that process. So we recognize that, and we wanted to start going through that. And one area that I think everybody has probably seen in our community is this process wheel. And this is a process wheel that we've adopted from Columbus, Indiana. And it really starts out with the stakeholders of the who. And you start with the grand challenge. And these are for the big picture items. And so this is where we started going through in the Center for Civic Engagement at the University of Findlay. And we're trying to get a common language to work through. And that's where we're trying to get with this initiative funding, with this request for proposals, where we are saying financial stability is important. John's going to talk about the details of it, but we think we've made a lot of strides over the past 3 years of doing our homework to understand what the community has said. We've listened over and over and over again, and we keep hearing the same themes bubble up. So it was really, how do we become proactive, address those themes, do it in a disruptive manner where it's not on a 12-month calendar, where we can fund long-term, communicate it to our partners of where we're going, and really get to the root cause change and impact what we need to do and where our community would like to go. Because we have wonderful agencies in town right now doing wonderful work. Fortunately, in my job, I get to work with a lot of you every single day. It's really, how do we work better together and continue. It's probably not the best analogy, but in my world, we talk about deal flow for economic development, what's in the pipeline for projects. And I view all of your partner agencies, and if we do this right, we're going to connect the people who need the help to the resources in a better way. So I'm hoping that we're going to connect more people to your agencies within the community through this process of initiative funding, and it's very exciting. So with that, I want to introduce John Urbanski, CEO of United Way. I asked him if I have a bio to read. I think everybody knows John. He said this is the first time in 5 years he's worn a name tag, so that's good. So John's going to go through the process. I will stick around. Christy, I don't have any troops to go to tonight to visit, but happy to answer questions. What's that? I can come visit when I'm done. So, but John's going to get a little bit more into the detail, but I can assure you, a lot of people in this room, a lot of board members have worked very hard and have done the homework and the due diligence to understand what our community needs and how the United Way can best affect it. So, John?
Well, good evening, everybody. Before I get started, I would like to bring Steve Holland up to the podium very briefly to introduce himself. He is the president of the Ohio United Way, which is our coalition that works together within the state. He was gracious enough to come up this evening and to listen in on what we're doing. And he's been with us now since 6 months, doing a great job. So, Steve.
Thank you, John. He told me about 5 minutes ago that I would have a speaking role tonight. So, the Ohio United Way is a state association of the United Ways in our state. There are 70 local United Ways in the state of Ohio. No state has more local United Ways than Ohio, except for Texas. As you would expect, everything's larger in Texas. One of the strengths of our state is our county form of government, the local small liberal arts colleges such as the University of Findlay here in town, Ohio Northern just down the road where I went to law school. Those are the types of communities that are vibrant and help hold us together, I think, as a state. And that's the strength, I think, of this association and associations or the organizations like the Hancock County or United Way of Hancock County. You guys really do a great job. John does a terrific job. His staff does a terrific job. And you're now embarking on a really important project here to change the way United Ways do business. It can be disruptive. It can be unsettling at times. But all the great corporations that are in our state, Procter & Gamble of Cincinnati has been around for 150, 160 years, and they've gone through strategic planning probably every 10 years, and they've remade themselves over and over and over, and they've made themselves into a better corporation, staying on top of the events of the day, and that's what this project is all about. And I'm thrilled that John invited me up, and I'm glad to be here, and I wish you success this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Nice extemporaneous speaking. So we've talked about this being disruptive, and basically what I want to start out by saying is that we do not take the responsibility of handling donor dollars lightly. All of you who are current partner agencies understand very well how fiscally responsible we are based on the grant process of utilizing the donor dollars as effectively as we can in this community. Therefore, we must eliminate any confusion and address the concerns head on. So the idea from what you're going to hear from me tonight is, particularly with the partner agencies, I've been talking to you for 3 years about this, about how we are moving forward. So this evening, the idea is to say, okay, change isn't necessarily easy, but it can be effective, it can be exciting, it can be positive, and that's what we intend to do with United Way and with our relationships in this community. We can't stay status quo. You all know in your organizations, whether you are a small nonprofit or a large corporation, status quo will mean failure down the road. We have to continually improve ourselves, make ourselves more effective, and have a positive impact on this community. So, financial stability. So Tim kind of alluded to some of these things, so there may be a little bit of crossover, but I'll try and explain a little more about what we're talking about. As he alluded to, I started in 2013, and in 2013 there was a community needs assessment that the hospital, the health department, the Community Foundation, and United Way and the Adamus Board funded. We also did our first set of community conversations in almost 10 years through the United Way platform. So once we did those in 2013, in early 2014, we got together and did a community mapping process. We took that information, we brought people together, we had existing coalitions that were already doing work, and we really picked this whole thing apart. And what, as Tim said, what rose to the top then was the issue of financial stability or workforce development and mental health and substance use. It doesn't mean that transportation, housing, domestic violence, hunger, any of those were less important, but those were the things that came out as a priority. And then that summer of 14, we had a situation where we brought in Jack Hess and John Burnett from Columbus, Indiana, who are kind of our gurus of coalition building, and we did a community conversation or a community evening at Weinbrenner. We asked the same question of over 200 people that evening, and once again, financial stability and mental health and substance use came out right at the top. So, you know, we're walking a good path at this point. So then over the next year and a half, we continue to work with our coalition building process. And again, this year, we did another round of community needs assessment with the foundation, with the hospital, the health department, Adamus, and ourselves. And then we did another round of community conversations and got over 1,000 voices in the community conversations. Over 1,400 people responded to the community needs assessment. Once again, it rose to the top. The interesting thing on this year's community conversations, the three top pieces were housing, transportation, and substance use. So you take a step back and say, okay, you know, is there a cart before the horse situation? And so what we decided as we continued to do our research was that if we affect change in financial stability, we will also affect change in housing and transportation and substance use. If we do, because if we help people with housing, if we help them become drug-free, if we help them get to work or get a job so they can own a car, they will have the ability to be more financially sustainable. So it's with that mindset that we come to you this evening and say, okay, we got to put a stake in the ground. It's not just about dollars. It's about how we impact the community in all those areas of service, which many of you are already doing. So we talk about the issues. By the way, there will be, where will the white paper be, Tamara? Back on the table where Tamara is, when you leave, I've got about 100 copies of a white paper that we had put together, which really is kind of, you can read through it. It's really a lot of what we're saying this evening. So, but to give you an idea, working with Diana Hoover at Job and Family Services, we have found that over the last 10 years, we average about 1,400 people on unemployment. So they are people who have had jobs but are currently unemployed. We average about 1,000 people who are what I would consider, for whatever reason, unemployable at this time. They don't have the skills, they may have barriers that they can't have a job, and they are receiving social service benefits. Then another piece you'll see come out, we just got a report in Ohio, which Steve helped address. It's called our ALICE report. And for those of you who have not heard what this stands for, it's Asset Limited Income Constrained Employed. It's basically our working poor. And so of those people, 25% of our 31,000 households in Hancock County are ALICE. I mean, think about that. That's over 7,700 people who are working and are either just above the poverty level or are below the poverty level. They're struggling to make ends meet day in and day out. So if anybody, and I'm preaching to the choir when I talk to other nonprofits about, you know, people saying those no good people who are out getting benefits. We've got over 7,000 people in this community that are struggling to live. 14% are just above the poverty level, but may be a car accident away or a hot water tank away from poverty. And then the other 11% are actually working but are still below the poverty level. So when we look at that, we know that we need to find a way to help move that process forward. You know, these people who are, and the other piece about this is something that I don't think a lot of people really understand. When you look at Findlay and Hancock County, you know, if you're not in our industry, you think prosperity, and we do have a lot of prosperity in this community. But at the same time, The county poverty rate is 13.9%, and the city of Findlay poverty rate, if you just take the city alone, is 19.2%. So our state average is 15.8, and our national average is 13.5. So once again, we are a great community, but we have challenges, and we collectively have to work on this together. The other piece that we want to talk about, the other issue, is the whole issue of our family functioning, where we have a situation where we have many children who have experienced what we call ACEs, or adverse childhood experiences. You know, there may be many of you in this room that have been either working with those children or know children who have had experiences that really make it difficult for them to learn, to grow, to function properly. And so, you know, part of this process, which you'll see as I move on, is we want to address that part also. So when we talk about our objectives, our overarching goal is that the residents of Hancock County will increase in financial stability. It is the new initiative. It's something that we are going to make a 5-year commitment to start off. So the first objective is that we're saying that we are going to try to affect change for 2,050 people who are in that category of either unemployed, underemployed, or unemployable, or ALICE population. And how do I arrive at that 2,050? The idea behind it is we're saying there are 20% of that 1,400 unemployed, 20% of the unemployable, and 20% of those that ALICE population. You come up with a little over 2,000 people. Our goal is that in 5 years, by 2022, we will have impacted those 2,000 lives. And together, I think we can get that done. The second piece, so the first objective is that working with that population. That's the workforce development. That's helping people become employable and getting them jobs. The second objective is what I call our cradle to career model, which many people use that term. And it's a grassroots effort to make systemic change in how we educate and prepare our youth to have the ability to be successful college students or to go into the workforce when they graduate from school. Develop those soft skills, help eliminate some of those barriers that they have as youth right now that make it so challenging before they even get started. And so those are the two objectives that we're hoping to address over the next 5 years. With those objectives, we have the 3 strategies. The first part is the workforce readiness. A second piece is financial empowerment. And the third piece is youth investment. So as we look at the workforce readiness, you know, the intent is that we are going to work alongside with Ohio Job and Family Services and our community partners who are already working in the trenches to identify this target population. Even, you know, it already is identified in many ways, but to bring it together so we can identify the individuals. We will be identifying the barriers to employment, such as lack of transportation or the affordable housing or quality health care, whatever those may be, and work towards that. Once the barriers are identified, the idea is that we ensure that new or returning workplace entrants, that the people are equipped with the skills and the knowledge to move forward. Then the other piece would be the activities, could be, you know, identifying the unemployed, the underemployed, the ALICE population, and working with those folks to help them get beyond the barriers that they have. The second piece is the financial empowerment, and this is a situation that I think And I think of many of our partner agencies who are already working with this population. And, you know, what we find is you can't help somebody in a group setting, like a class that says, we want to teach you how to write a check. We want to teach you how to save. We want to teach you to do this. And those of you who are in this network know that it doesn't work this way. What we're going to have to do as a community is to put ourselves in a position that we do a one-on-one work cooperatively and with our men and women and youth in the community to do this. You know, it's kind of interesting because I have a quote here that Heather provided me that says, living under the tyranny of the moment, which means no chance or ability to plan due to a constant state of emergency, leaves little opportunity to plan for crisis when unexpected expenses are suddenly incurred. So basically, you know, we talked about this, 25% of the population are ALICE, plus the people who are not working. So how are we going to affect that change? We can't do it with a bunch of new programs, but I think what we can do is we can have our people, our community working together and working with these folks on a one-on-one basis. So we have to teach people individually how to manage their money, what monies they have, develop financial acumen, understand the processes by which to work with the bank rather than work with payday lenders. You know, there are so many issues that are affecting these people right now that we need to make sure that for folks such as you and I that may already, I mean, it may be more natural for us. But then again, there are many people in this room who also may not have a whole lot of financial acumen, but we need to have that ability to teach these people how to survive. And then finally, the third strategy is our youth investment. And I think that, you know, it speaks for itself. Talking with Ed Kurt before the session, and it's just amazing because of the programming that they've done with their trauma-informed care, with the Leader in Me program that is being implemented in the school system, and the other new changes that they are making. He has said is that so far this year, they're 1/3 of the disciplinary problems that they've had in the past. What that does is that allows those teachers to be teachers. That allows those students to go to school in a positive environment. So what United Way has done so far, which was how we kind of put our toe in the water in this initiative in the last couple of years, is in collaboration with the Community Foundation, we're funding scholarships for pre-K in the Findlay City and County schools. And so with the fact that over 50% of our school population are on free and reduced lunches and are in need of that, and in some schools, it's up over 75 or 80%. So we are able to provide those benefits to get the child to school on a bus, to get them pay for their preschool education, and to feed them while they're there, and to bus them when they're home. Now, you can say as a community member, that's great that we're doing this in the school system. Well, you know, I look at people such as Brent Finley out there who has the Y Child Care Center. And they're doing some of the same things that the school system is trying to do in their pre-K program. So to look at this process, the idea is to try and assist the public, the private, and the parochial schools and child care centers to work cooperatively towards the same goals. So for instance, right now, the city and county schools have just combined what they call their SLOs, or student learning objectives, in preschool. So with that, they have a consistent measurement. If we, and they're able to show already after a year and a half of children going through the program that might not have been able to versus their peers that did not attend, an incredible increase in those SLOs. We're going to work with the outside programs also, trying to get people to work together cooperatively. The other piece, of course, is the Leader in Me, which many of you have heard about. It's Stephen Covey's 7 Habits And we have, of highly affected people, it's brought down to a school-age based level. It's already in 5 schools? 5 schools in the city, plus 2 schools in the county. And so this year, United Way funded Northview's Leader in Me and Arlington's Leader in Me. We're going to look to the community to work together so that we can implement the Leader in Me, not only from a K through 3 level, but all the way through high school, so that we can help empower those youth to be prepared as they move on. So those are the strategies. Now here's our commitment. As you see, United Way is pledging $5 million over the next 5 years. And what that doesn't mean $1 million a year for 5 years. What that means is we're putting a stake in the ground and saying that, you know, the beginning, first year it may be less or it may be more as we move forward. The other piece of this is that as those who have received United Way funding historically, you know that we've always funded on a 1-year basis, and people apply for grants every year with the outcomes necessary for that. We're going to do this as multi-year grants with either 3 to 5 year grants. The idea behind that is we know perfectly well that you cannot solve root problems in 1 year. So, and the idea is that we'll have people working together to do this. Our current partner agencies that do not fall under the scope of work of this financial stability initiative will do their grant requests as they have done traditionally. So it's not like we're, you know, throwing the baby out of the bathwater, or the bathwater, whatever. Yeah, I gotta get my cliches right. So the idea behind that is that we will be working with our partner agencies to identify how they fit in with the financial stability initiative, and through that, they will have the opportunity to work with our RFP process. So, before we move on to that, I want to kind of give you, and I guess the other big piece of this will be, you know, historically we fund individual programs from individual organizations. Priority will be given to groups that get together and have a common agenda with common metrics as far as trying to achieve these financial stability goals. So if, you know, the idea is that to reduce and eliminate gaps and duplication of services. So kind of give you a little more of a historical background here as to how United Way is funded. Many of you in here are already very familiar with this, but please bear with me. When we started out in 1955, we were actually called the United Community Fund. And 8 business people under the auspices of the Chamber of Commerce started the United Way, or the United Community Fund. And a lot of you have heard me say this, but I'll say it one more time for those who haven't. My father happened to have been one of the people that started United Way in Hancock County. So never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that I would be up here talking to this group about what, as being a member of our team. So the thing about United Way, as you know, it helped the community by doing a one-ask payroll deduct, so that, you know, it was one of those situations where all these different groups were hitting up the businesses and individuals raising money. The idea was to bring it under a one-ask scenario. And, you know, and we also started as for many years as a deficit funding organization. The different groups came to us with their budgets. They were X number of dollars short, and United Way helped to make them whole in that process. The organizations that started with United Way and are still a part of our team, our partners, are the Boy Scouts, Campfire, Cancer Patient Services, the Girl Scouts, what was called Hancock County Mental Health Association back then, the American Red Cross, the Salvation Army, and the YMCA. So the basic reason for the existence of United Way has been over the years to develop a revenue stream for all of its partner agencies to enable them to do their jobs. So we move forward. In 2003, United Way recognized a need for change. And you will see as we move along here how we have fundraising, we have the corporate gifts, which is the donor gifts, but there's no third-party access to this point, or giving. And the community, we have our community grant process, which I think most people know about. So if I go back, you can see that we talked of what we had was we were funding partner agencies. In 2003, we saw the change that was needed, that it wasn't just about funding agencies, but it was about funding outcomes. So a lot of it was just a transition with our partner agencies, but instead of funding deficit funding, we started to fund programs and funded the outcomes of those programs so that all of us are held accountable for the donor dollars. So we saw that it was needed. We heard from the donors that that's what they wanted, and so that's how we moved forward with that transition. And that's where United Way implemented its measurable outcomes process. Then, in 2008, but there were still some gaps, and there's still some duplication of efforts. In 2008, we took on the United Way Worldwide model, and instead of just being program funding, it was really, in a sense, it was really more semantics than anything else. We went to the health, education, and financial stability, or what they called health, education, and income. No real big change. We're funding programs, we're still funding measurable outcomes, but it was just put under a different profile. And so that is kind of where we have been today. We're up to date. We also added planned giving to our platform in order to help sustain United Way over the years. Many nonprofits are also doing the same thing as we are doing also. So we're still under a two-level funding stream. So this leads us to why we're here. You know, in these previous ones, we've got this line through the third party. Well, all of a sudden, there's a whole bunch of other parties here. This issue about initiative funding is that we all know, and those of you who I work with on a regular basis know that I consistently say it is not about United Way, because it isn't. It's about our community. It takes all of us to resolve the issues that we have in this community, and no one group can do it individually. So United Way, the community's been very supportive. In the last several years, we've been raising a little over $3 million. But think about if you combine the budgets of the nonprofits in this room, there's a lot more that needs to be used to provide services. So what we're saying now is that we are looking at the collective impact model for the opportunity, and I guess we really kind of learned this process through our Halt Hunger initiative, which started before we started talking about collective impact. But the idea behind that is that we found through the Halt Hunger initiative that we were able to get other grants that we couldn't get as United Way. We were able to get those from foundations, we were able to get them from corporations. We had individuals in the community who were United Way donors but had a passion for food security and made their own additional donation to the Halt Hunger initiative. And I'll do a shout out right here now for Don and Carrie Templin from Marathon Petroleum. They gave us a grant for $35,000 a year for 5 years to help with the Halt Hunger initiative. And it's men and women, organizations like that, which show how this process can work. So the idea is that we move forward into the financial stability arena. So we want to lessen the need for other support services. We want to decrease homelessness. We want to decrease the need for hunger relief. We want to decrease transportation challenges, and we want to provide treatment for mental health and substance use issues and trying to raise the lives of the people around us. So you look at this now, the plan is we continue on with the Financial Stability Initiative. We will continue on funding health and education, and we will continue on funding our safety net services. I'll talk a little bit more about that afterwards, but before we go much further, I'd like to have Bev Phillips from our team come up and kind of talk about the funding timeline, and then I can kind of fill you in a little more about that.
Good evening. Thank you all for being here this evening. It's nice to see our friends and our local people here, so again, thank you. Although I am a staff member of the United Way of Hancock County, I'm really speaking on the behalf of an ad hoc committee that has been made up of several people in our community. If you're here and like to raise your hand, that's great. A couple of them are out of the state at this point in time, but I'm speaking for Dave Weikart, Bill Doyle, Karen Jones, Chris Ward, Bill McCleve, Tim Miley, and Denny Kummerer. I just want to thank them for all the time and effort. They've been working together for about a year and a half to create a platform of evolution, is what we're calling it, from our current program grant process to incorporating the initiative funding into that. Okay, so actually, we want to start with the end in mind, begin with the end in mind, so we're speaking to Stephen Covey right there. And that is to help fund our partner agencies and other agencies within the community who are doing good work. First of all, this is very high level and not down in the weeds as to how this process is going to work. But as agencies express an interest in funds from the Financial Stability Initiative, we'll be providing a link for them that will allow them to establish this with their collaborative or a single program that will allow them to sign into an online system. Many of you out here are familiar with this. If you've been funded by us before in the last maybe 8 years, you've been in the EC Impact system, so it'll be very easy transition for you. It'll be arranged just a little bit differently, but you'll feel very comfortable within that system. So once you get into that web-based system, then what we will be doing is asking you some questions in that system. And should the requested initiative or the independent program meet the initial requirements that we set for the initiative funding, then you will get permission again to go back into the system and complete the grant process. There are some things to note about this. It's very important things, that we are no longer limited to the traditional nonprofit organizations. So within this change, we'll be able to work, like as mentioned before, with Job and Family Services. They'll be coming in as a partner in the initiative process. There are other ways that we can work as well. So again, working within different kinds of categories of nonprofits. Churches as well will be coming in. They're nonprofits in another category, but they're more than welcome to come in if they can provide services that will address financial stability in our community. And as John has expressed, more weight will be given to those working together to address community needs. It's very important for us to be able to see that needle move. A lot of you are working in programs that have very, very similar outcomes. They might be phrased differently, but all in all, you are all working towards the same goals. And what we'll be doing with financial stability is looking for that within your programs. As we move forward, we'll be looking at in other initiatives down the road as well. So again, working together is very critical. We have that opportunity for you, and we think it will work out, and we think our community will grow and will prosper from that. Another good thing, as John expressed, is the multi-year funding process. We know that we can't get results right away, and we want to be able to help you through that process to see the results as they're coming and be able to help you move through this and be able to share that with our community so we can say where we were and where we're going. Now, the grants, again, as in our normal process, they're going to be reviewed by community volunteers, and they're going to make the funding recommendations based on how the clients are better off, how the service is being delivered, and the direct impact on our community. So collaboration and innovation is very encouraged in your work. Again, this is high level for you, but as you work together, you're going to see how this is going to be a great way for us all. There are some timelines involved with this, and just to let you know what those are. Okay. The requests for funding, or the RFPs, they're going to be available to the public by November 10th, or sooner if we can get that put together for you, of 2017. This information is going to be available on our website. We are going to do media releases. We're going to follow all the normal procedures for letting you know. And we'll also connect with the agencies personally to let you know that this is out there and is going to be available for you. Our next deadline will be February 1st, so you're really going to have that opportunity once your programs are approved, once we look at all your information, then you're going to have until February 1st to submit your grant, much on the same timeline as our program grants normally are. Our grant awards are going to be announced again in mid to end of March, which is what we are doing at the present time. And once those announcements are made, that funding will start to be dispersed beginning April 1st of 2018. And it is expected, as was said, that the grants are going to be multi-year because we want to affect that change. I know this is a high-level information for you. We will be providing lots more information. It's not like you're going to go into this cold turkey. We will be preparing actual forms for you to review. We'll be preparing a booklet for you that will instruct you on how to do it with screenshots, everything that you'll need to go through to do this. But this will be a learning experience for all of us. We're going to work together. Our office will be very, very available to assist you in how this is working. We'll meet with you at any time that you need to meet with us. And again, we have to work together to make these outcomes happen and to raise our community, raise the financial stability of the people in our community so that we can all be successful. So just to let you know, as United Way, as a member of our team, I'm really excited about this. I've been doing what I have been doing in this community here for about the last 8 years. We have some really, really great organizations within this community, organizations that we have funded, organizations that we have not yet funded that might be available for this type of funding. I'm really excited that we can all work together in this. I'm excited for myself, I'm excited for our United Way team, and I'm excited for the community. And I'd just like to say again that thank you for your cooperation in this, and we're looking forward to working in this system together with you to promote financial stability and raise the level of our community in Hancock County. So thank you.
Thanks, Bev. She has been a great asset for me as we've been moving forward in this whole process. Actually, our entire team has been very, very much involved. You know, we talk about how we do this together, and I'll give you another example of what United Way has done in cooperation with our community. A year ago, working with the Workforce Development Coalition, we created what was called Raise the Bar. Lori Zadanek is the executive director of that, and that all started with the idea that no one organization could, it's not, you know, workforce development and growing these processes cannot be handled by one organization. So the Community Foundation, the City of Findlay, Economic Development, the county, and the United Way all committed $30,000 a year for 5 years to put that process together. So it's a true community collaboration, and we believe that it's going to have great benefits. Lori's been actively involved in many of the coalitions as we've moved this process forward. So before we, what we're going to do next is we're going to move into a situation where I'm going to sit down here at this table, Bev is back at the back table, and Tim Miley will probably go right over there, and we'll have a note taker with us, and we'll give all of you the opportunity for whatever area you're most interested in to come and sit and ask questions. We'll have note takers so that we can then, we've got all your email addresses, we'll compile all this. We'll compile the questions, the answers, and updates on what our next steps are. That's kind of how we're going to move that forward. So people who don't want to hang around, they have the opportunity to go, but those who have more questions can stay. But before I conclude, I keep saying it's not about us, and I want to tell you, I'd like to read 3 quotes from who I feel are 3 critical partners in this community. The first one comes from Gary Heminger, because I had the opportunity to have a nice visit with him about a month or so after I started my job in 2013. So Gary sent me this quote. He said, when John Urbanski began his tenure at United Way a few years ago, he and I discussed how important it is for the organization to more fully address root causes in our community. By addressing community needs like financial literacy, transportation, and adequate housing, our United Way's new financial stability initiative assists people in ways that are fundamental to allowing them to build better lives for themselves. Also, over the last 3 years, I've been working closely with the Ministerial Association, Backyard Mission, helping in different areas with that. And so Bill Rice provided this quote. Bill is the senior pastor at the College First Church of God. Bill says, the faith-based community works daily to address the most basic needs and symptoms of our families. This is a critical ministry that we embrace, and the Backyard Mission is one tangible way of meeting some of those basic needs. We also know that we need to dig deeper as a community family to address root causes such as mental health and substance use, as well as homelessness and other issues which affect financial stability. We are pleased to work cooperatively with United Way and all of our other community partners. And finally, I talked about how we will work with Job and Family Services and the rest of you in identifying and helping to affect change on these individuals. Well, Diana Hoover sent me this note that says, at Job and Family Services, we see the impact of financial instability, medical issues, and trauma on a daily basis. Addressing the root causes of these issues will aid our citizens in obtaining stable housing, transportation, financial security, and most of all, increased personal safety for the entire community. These social problems cannot be addressed by any one agency alone. So the United Way step to working collaboratively in resolving issues at the root cause will aid our entire community. As an agency, we are looking forward to being a part of the resolution. So I guess I'd just like to conclude, first of all, by thanking all of the folks that we work with, the partner agencies, other community partners, the men and women who are here who serve on the boards of these partner agencies. Without you, we couldn't be the great community we are. But I firmly believe that together we can be a much better community. We can help those people who you struggle with day in and day out trying to affect change in their lives. I think together, if we join forces and work at it cooperatively, we have an unlimited ability to work to help raise the bar for each of them. The financial stability piece is, we have a finite amount of money within this community. We have opportunities when we do our grants together, when we work collectively, cooperatively, we can go outside of this community. We can get grants from foundations that are national foundations. We will have that ability to help make the difference. And we know one of us can do it alone, and I firmly believe that we are just here to help to be a facilitator, a convener, and of course have the opportunity to provide funding as a catalyst to get this process moving forward. Really thank you for being here this evening. I am so excited to be working with you in this process. Those of you who knew me in my former life as an entrepreneur in the food service business know that I like to do things now. And this is 3.5 years later. And so it's taken a lot of time to put this process together. And I firmly believe, as I look at all of you out here, that I know that together we can get this accomplished. But we have to work at it day in and day out, which you already do. I'm preaching to the choir. So thanks for being here. I'm going to go down here, and as I say, we'll have note takers. Bev will be back there. Tim will be over here. And the whole idea, fill out note cards. If you don't want to stay but you have questions, fill out a note card and leave it on the table. We will address every question that is asked, and we will provide the answers to everybody in this room that provided us with an email address. So you'll see over the next couple weeks. Right, and as I said at the beginning, there is the white paper which pretty well identifies everything we spoke of this evening, and you can use that, you know, as a tool for as we move forward. So thank you again for being here. I know it's a beautiful evening. Go out and enjoy the rest of it, but stick around and talk as much as you like with us. Thank you very much.